In a world where hustle culture collides with wellness warnings and workplace demands keep evolving, how do we stay sharp without burning out? How do we navigate the endless stream of wellness trends while actually getting results? This is the Work and Wellness Podcast, and I'm your host, Ange Davis. Drawing from my own journey of wins, stumbles, and honest revelations, I'll be bringing you raw, unfiltered conversations with experts and inspiring guests who've been there, lived it, and found a better way. Together, we'll cut through the noise and workshop what it really means to be well in today's workplace. No more choosing between success and sanity. No more sacrificing health for achievement. Whether you're struggling with burnout, searching for purpose, or simply ready to work smarter, not harder, you're in the right place. This is real talk about real solutions for real people. Let's get into it. Hello, friends. Welcome to the show. I am so excited for today's episode. It is all about designing your intentional year for 2025. So this episode is all about how to set effective goals for 2025 using some systems and practices that my husband Liam and I use every year. So it's really not about a New Year's resolution, but rather taking the opportunity for a New Year reset to sit down and decide how you would like your 2025 to look coming into the new year. I wanted to start with some stats around goal setting and how the way you set goals really has a profound impact on your ability to achieve them. Only 9% of people who set a New Year's resolution feel that they're successful in achieving them, and 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February. So those are some pretty grim stats about setting goals for the new year. But people who write down their goals are 42% more likely to achieve them. Setting specific goals increases achievement by 30% as compared to vague goals. And close to 80% of people who share their goals with a friend and send weekly updates achieve them. So those are some pretty interesting stats, and I think they really set the tone for today's episode around the importance of the way that you set goals going into 2025. Every December, my husband and I have a little tradition that I absolutely love on New Year's Day. We wake up early and we take some time to sit together. Sometimes it's in our backyard, sometimes it's in bed, sometimes it's down the beach. And we just like to sit together and intentionally design our new year, what we want it to look like. It's not just about setting goals, but it's really about crafting the life that we want. And I think it's so important because in today's world, we're often so influenced by what we see on social media or in the news that we often don't have a lot of time to sit down and reflect and really think about how we craft the type of life that we want. So today I'm going to share the exact process with you that we go through, because it's really transformed our approach to setting goals. And I really feel like, and I think Liam would say the same, that it has transformed our life for the better quite significantly. And I want to say that every year we achieve 80 to 90% of the goals that we write down during this time. Now, my personal view is if you achieve 100%, then it means I haven't written down a challenging enough or stretch goal. So I'm okay with not achieving 100% because I feel like it means that we've really set challenging goals. But every year we really are able to sit and reflect and look back and realize that we've achieved 80 to 90% of the goals that we set, which is pretty cool. And it makes you feel like you've really made meaning out of the year rather than sort of just cruising through. So we have a 3-layer approach. And one of these layers is a more recent addition. I saw it on social media, actually, of all things, but it's such a great way to make your year meaningful. So I'm going to go through these 3 layers, and you might want to listen to the episode and come back with a pen and paper, or you may wish to just pause as we go through today and write down things as we're going, or you might want to even just write down the pro forma of what I'm talking through as we go. So the 3-layer approach, the first layer is the feel first method. The first thing that we do is start with the end in mind and think about how we want to feel in December 2025. We identify the key emotions. Are they energized, fulfilled, connected, etc.? And then we create sensory touchstones around that. So what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like, etc.? Then we go into something called the backwards design. These are all of the things that are going to help us get to the end of the year feeling the way that we said we wanted to feel in part 1. So what are the professional milestones that we need to support our vision? What are the personal growth areas to develop? What relationships do we want to nurture? And equal to that, what relationships are in our life that aren't serving us and maybe bringing us down? And what skills do we want to acquire? Really thinking through each of those. So professional, personal, growth, and skills. And thinking about what specific things in each of those we need to do to get ourselves to feeling how we said we wanted to feel in December 2025. Then once we've done those things, we add a little bit of fun and interest into our year, because I don't know about you, but I certainly feel like there have been years in my life where you get to the end and you just think, what on earth did we do that year? And so this is a new, more recent addition that we've added, and I love this addition. And you plan it at the start of the year, and it's called the Big Picture Framework. And it's basically you do one year defining thing every year. So one big year defining thing. And then you do 4 mini adventures throughout the year. And they're quarterly experiences that add excitement and growth to your life. So some examples for us from a year defining thing. Last year for me, it was starting a podcast. So here we are. I started the podcast. And for 2025, Liam and I are going to run an ultra marathon. Absolutely terrifying. I haven't run in a long time, so it's a really good year defining goal for us. It's in the middle of the year and we'll be running 52 kilometers on a trail run. From a mini adventure perspective, some examples that we did last year, we did a weekend speaking course, the 2 of us, because we knew that it would help our work. A hiking challenge, a fun run, so you might sign up to a 5 or 10 or 20, 50K run. Spending a month in Italy was one of ours. Whatever they are, you just need to make sure that there is one each quarter, because what it does is it gives you something to look forward to, something to get excited about, and something that gives you a new experience that you may not have done before. Because as we get older, it gets harder and harder to do new things. And I really feel like doing new things is something that is so good for our soul, and it just keeps us alive. It keeps us living. So one thing every quarter. I'm going to dive into each of these areas so you've got a really practical framework for how you can implement each of these. So the first one, the feel first method. This is how you practically implement this method. You might want to grab a pen and paper for this and pause the episode, or like I said before, listen to the episode and then come back to this and write it down. But some questions to consider when you're thinking about December 2025 and how you want to feel. What are you celebrating? Who are you spending time with? What have you learnt? How has your daily routine evolved? What are your core feelings? How are you feeling at the end of the year? Those are 5 questions that can help prompt you to really sit and think and visualize how you want to be feeling at the end of 2025. And I want you to try and not get too in your head about this. really try and just sit. You might want to close your eyes and visualize what you look like. Visualize what you're saying to your loved ones. Visualize how you're waking up on the 31st of December, reviewing your year. So those are the prompt questions that can just help you try and visualize and write down what that feeling is. What are you celebrating? Who are you spending time with? What have you learnt? How has your daily routine evolved? And what are your core feelings? That's the feel first method, and that is going to give you a really good overview and understanding of how you want to be feeling come the end of the year. Then we go into the backwards design method. Now, this method is really about doing all of the things that you need to do, so the actions and the activities to be able to feel the way you decided you wanted to feel. And there are a professional and a personal lens on this. From a professional framework, identify key career and business milestones you want to achieve that are going to allow you to feel the way you said you wanted to feel. So what are the key career and business milestones? For me last year, as an example, it was a certain number of speaking events that I wanted to be doing. What are your skill development needs? What are the things that you need to develop from a skill perspective that are going to allow you to get to those career and business milestones? We all have them. There are things that we always need to develop. Like I said before, for me, it was a speaking course and really honing my skill of speaking. And then what network building opportunities are there? If you listened to my last episode, you would know this is not about that cringy sort of going to networking events, but really understanding who is in your network and who you can build meaningful connections with that can work with you or that you can collaborate with to help you achieve your career and business milestones. So that's the professional one. Understand what career and business milestones are going to get you to the feeling that you said. And then in order to achieve those career and business milestones, what are the skills you need to develop? And what are your networks that you need to develop to get you there? Because those are really the two things that are going to enable you to get to where you need to go from a business and career perspective. Then from a personal growth perspective, writing down your health and wellness goals and being really specific about these. How many times do you want to exercise? What do you want to do with your food? What does mindfulness look like to you? What do your relationships look like? How are you going to nurture your relationships? Then from a personal development perspective, are there any personal skills that you want to work on this year? So for me this year, it's going to be about running. That is a skill that I need to build up again and really work on and hone that skill so that I can get through this ultra marathon as unscathed as possible. And then community involvement. You know, our communities are so important to us. So what are you going to do to build your personal community this year? So health and wellness goals from a personal perspective, relationship nurturing, your personal development, and then your community involvement. Those are the 4 things from a personal perspective. The trick for this backward design method, as I've mentioned a couple of times, is to connect all of these things back in with your feeling work. Will these things result in you feeling the way you wrote down? Because what often happens is we write down goals that we think we need to achieve, but if you were to connect those back into how you wanted to feel, they can often be incongruent with how you want to feel. So they're not aligned to actually how you want to feel. And doing it in this order is a really, really good way to truly understand if the things you're working towards are actually going to get you to where you want to be from a feeling perspective, because really that's what life's all about. Enjoying life as you go along and feeling a certain way. What's really important in all of this is building environmental cues. What do I mean by this? Environmental cues are things that you see every day around your house, your car, on your phone, on your laptop, that will help remind you and anchor you back to your goals. For example, I write down on my whiteboard that I see in front of my desk every single day the goals that I have and the feeling that I want to achieve. And it helps me realize if I'm on track or off track. And even if I don't proactively or consciously notice it, it's always there in your subconscious. Then the third element of this is your year defining thing and your mini adventures. So this is a way to add fun and meaning and excitement into your year. Choosing your year defining thing. It must be challenging, exciting, and slightly scary. Those are the prerequisites for your year defining thing. So challenging, exciting, and slightly scary are the most important parts of this. So some examples from prior year defining things, it might be training for a marathon, learning a new language. For me, starting my podcast, it might be moving countries or states or into a new area. For 2025, like I mentioned, for us, it's running an ultra marathon. So one big, challenging, exciting, slightly scary thing that you really need to dedicate and commit time to be able to achieve it. It shouldn't be easy to achieve. Then planning a quarterly mini adventure. So one every quarter. So you've got something to look forward to. This is how we choose our quarterly mini adventures. We balance different life areas. So physical challenges, creative pursuits, relationship building, or skill development. Those are the things that we try and think of. You don't have to do one of each. You might do 4 physical challenges or 4 creative pursuits or 2 relationship building, 2 skills development. It doesn't matter. Those are just the categories that help us decide what we're going to do for the quarter. Past successful mini adventures that we've done. So for me, I learnt to make pottery. So I signed up to a pottery wheel course. I did it for the whole quarter. So it was a 12-week pottery wheel course. And it was such an incredible and humbling course because it was skill development, but it was also really creative and mindful as well. A weekend health retreat. So we went to Eden Health Retreat. That was something that I really loved. Weekend hiking adventures, or Liam and I did a weekend speaking course. So just something punctuated in every quarter that gives you something to look forward to and allows you to look back on your year and think, oh, I really did some cool things this year. And so it helps you get out of the monotony and the routine of the year and really do some things that are different, outside of your comfort zone, and help you get into a new and different environment, because I think it's really good for the soul. A little bonus tip that I like to add here, and I know a lot of people do this, but I find it really helpful to anchor back into, and that is choosing a word for the year. So there's a lot of power in choosing one word or a small phrase. And how we choose our annual word is we look back on all of the things that we wrote down from each of the 3 methods. So from your feeling, from the backwards method, and from your year defining thing and your mini adventures. And think about a word or a small phrase that sums up what you ultimately want to achieve for the year. And that word becomes something that you're able to connect back into, because it's so important to have something that continues to remind you and guides you along the way. I'll give you an example of mine. The last year's phrase that I had was on purpose. And for me, it was no longer about going through the throes of life. You know, when I was in my corporate career, I was very much going through the motions. And last year for me, it was about very purposefully deciding how I wanted to spend my time in a way that was purposeful and meaningful. You can use this word as a daily compass. I write my word on my whiteboard above my desk and on my phone screensaver, like I was saying, and it's just a daily reminder to check back in. So I'm still thinking about my word for the year next year, but I definitely want it to encompass something along the lines of exploration or adventure. I saw my friend Christy, who's an amazing astrologer, and she spoke to me about throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, you know, and just not tying so much pressure to everything and just having fun and enjoying the process of trying things out. And so I'm definitely going to be incorporating that into my word of the year next year. I wanted to finish on how you set yourself up for success. So you've got your ways that you've created your goals. So your feeling first, your backwards method, and then your year defining goal and mini adventures. The ways that I make sure that I am continually checking in with these goals are, first of all, morning pages and evening reflection. So I just think about my word for the year, think about my feeling words that I had set. And when I do my morning pages, I just have that as my intention. And I'm writing down, it doesn't matter what you write down on your morning pages, but it does give you an indication if you are on track or if you're sort of veering off track for what you wanted to achieve. And then evening reflection is you do your gratitude. It might be 2 or 3 things you're grateful for. And then a reflection on how you lent into your word for that day. How did you play out the word? Do you feel like you embodied the word? And it helps keep you on track. A monthly check-in. So really helpful. You don't have to do a check-in every single day. You might want to do it with your partner or a friend or a family member, or you might want to do it solo. But doing a monthly check-in just helps you understand, am I on track? Is this goal and plan that I set for myself actually still what I want to achieve? Because it's also okay if you get partway through the year and say, I've gone down a different path, but this is the right path for me and I feel good about it. A monthly check-in helps you to really understand and recalibrate. Visual reminders around the house or your office. I do really like a vision board, and I know it can sound a bit cheesy or naff, but I'm quite a visual person. And so having pictures of my goals and the things I want to achieve that I can just sort of walk past and I notice it is really, really helpful for me. And I just looked back at my vision board before doing this podcast, and all but one thing on that board I've achieved this year. So I do really find there is strong power in the visual representation of what you want to achieve. Now, I'm not saying you can do a vision board and then your goals are just going to come to life. Of course, action has to follow. But what I think it does is it reminds you and connects you back in with where you want to be. Quarterly adventure planning. We actually like to do this at the start of the year and pop it on the calendar so it's done. But you might want to, at the end of each quarter, plan your next quarter. And then I love to do a mid-year reset session. So halfway through the year, at the end of financial year, just take a moment, see where you're at. How are you tracking to your goals? Are you feeling like you're on track for them? Or do you need to recalibrate your actions so that you can achieve them if you're feeling like you haven't really progressed as far as you want to? And again, that's okay. Different things happen throughout the year, but having a halfway checkpoint can really help to understand what you then need to do and change to make sure that you're getting towards those goals at the end of the year. And of course, it would not be a yearly goal without getting to the end and doing some reflection and celebration. And I think that's really important. Too often in work and personally, we get to our goal and we think, okay, we've done that, on to the next. What's next? And I really want to highlight the importance of pausing, reflecting, congratulating and celebrating yourself, and then moving on to the next. So what are your next steps to be able to get your goals written down and get them this year? The first one is schedule your planning session. My favorite time is sunrise on New Year's Day. There is just something about that time of day and time of year, but schedule in your goal planning session. Write down the tips and the structure from this episode. You might want to go back and just sort of fast forward through and write down the prompting questions and the tips for setting your goals. Choose your word of the year and write it everywhere you can see it. And fourth, share your year-defining thing with me. Feel free to share it with me. If you want to, send it to me on Instagram on mind.your.grit. I would love to hear your year-defining thing. And if there's anything I can do to help you achieve it, please let me know, even if that is as an accountability partner. Hopefully you have gotten some insights out of today's session and you're able to take all of these tips and create some really meaningful goals this year so that Come the 31st of December, 2025, you get to the end of the year and you feel like you've really had a wonderful year. Not just that you've achieved your goals, but also that you've done some new things, had some new experiences and some fun and adventure along the way. Thanks for listening and happy goal setting. Thanks for joining me on Work and Wellness. If today's episode resonated with you, remember, someone in your network might need to hear this too. Share it with a colleague or friend who could use these insights. I'd love to keep the conversation going, so find us on Instagram at Mind Your Grit, where we share daily tips and continue these discussions. And if you found value in today's episode, please take time to rate and review the show. It makes such a huge difference and helps other people discover conversations they might really need. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Each week, we're building a community of people who believe that success and well-being go hand in hand. You can find the notes, resources, and links from today's episode at mindyourgrit.com. This is Work and Wellness with Davies. Your work matters, your wellness matters, and this is where it all comes together. See you next week.